Matthew Kirk, External Affairs Director of the Vodafone Group. Matthew?
Thank you very much, Michelle. I want to talk mainly about trust in the big data world, picking up very much from what Kenneth has just been talking about. But let me start, first of all, with one word on opportunity. I was very struck in Renée's presentation. She talked about the proportion of data which is currently coming from mobile being small, growing to 20% by 2020, and the proportion of data which currently comes from machine-to-machine communications being extremely small and growing to about 20% by 2020. If you think about putting those two together and the opportunity that that creates in a world where one of the huge challenges we face in every continent is urbanization and how you provide services to the millions of people who are moving into cities. The ability to understand how people are actually moving, what they're doing during their day, and how the services which are there to support them, water supply, power supply, sewerage, public transport, that kind of thing, interact with those movements and activities of people. You can see how, rather than taking generations to experiment and design the systems which support us, you can accelerate that process enormously and so deliver a much better result much more quickly. Let me turn to trust. I was struck by some results from a Eurobarometer survey looking across, obviously, European population at how people interact with some of the questions we've been talking about. More than half the people who use free online services, email, messaging, that kind of thing, don't like the advertising that comes to them as a result, despite the fact that they probably understand that it's the advertising that pays for the free service they're getting. 60% plus of people feel that data is an important issue to them. The relationship between data and their privacy is an important issue to them. Only about a third of people trust mobile phone companies like Vodafone with their data. Less than a quarter of people trust the internet service companies with their data. 3/4 of people want to have more control over their data and want the ability for their data to move with them as they move around the service environment. So I think there is a big challenge. And the fact that these concerns have not stopped people from using services which generate data doesn't, to me, mean that we can all feel comfortable that we can just carry on as though there isn't a problem. That said, I completely agree with Renée that the answer to this is not primarily in legislation. And I think the reason for that is that it's extraordinarily difficult in a legislative way to define what we mean by personal data. There are some very obvious bits, my name, my face, my address, my bank account details, and so forth. Those are very obvious bits of data that's very personal to me. But when you start going beyond that and looking at the data that my patterns of digital activity generate, some analyses of those will lead you straight to me. Others will lead you to a large data set of which I'm an anonymous part. And legislating for that degree of abstraction is enormously difficult, which is why I think trust is at the heart of enabling us to move into this big data world with confidence. And those who are creating, storing, and using big data really need to build systems with the people who are generating the big data by their activity, which enable them to feel that level of confidence and trust. There are some major jurisdictional challenges as well, in that as an individual, you naturally look to the authorities of the country, the jurisdiction in which you live, to protect you in terms of consumer rights, to protect you in terms of privacy, and so forth. The big data world is an international world. It's a global world. It's not one which has natural jurisdictional boundaries of the kind that our civil and political life does. And so I think there is a big challenge there for the legislator and the policymaker to understand how the individual's concept of protection within a national jurisdiction can play its role within an international big data system. And I think a lot of that is down to having really well-developed systems of individual protection. And it may well be up to the companies who are leading into this world to come up with those systems, to put them in place, to create the confidence more quickly and more fluently than the legislator can. Very quick word on the benefits and public good. I was very struck, Kenneth, by your Ebola example. The first approach to Vodafone on Ebola was about release of data, not about money, which was very striking. And how you could start to use patterns of activity to predict where Ebola might come out next, and thereby to try and prevent outbreaks and contain the spread of it. I do think that one of the things that we can use to help bring people with us in the big data journey is precisely the public good that can come of it, whether it's the urbanization example I mentioned at the beginning or tackling a major crisis like Ebola at the end. The understanding that your data can deliver real public good, I think, is a very powerful one and should help us through this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.